Getting straight into the word this morning, for some of you who probably would have taken a hint or looked at it, probably skipped the idea. I'm considering this morning, or was considering for the last week, about this whole issue, what have caused a big uproar starting in the States, going through the entire world, and interestingly reaching to Trinidad. And I'm talking about this issue of the Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. So let me start by asking the question, do Black Lives Matter? You could either answer yes or no.
Yes.
You're not sure?
Yes.
Do Black Lives Matter?
Yes.
Yes. Of course they do. And what happens usually behind pulpit, some of these issues are ignored, they are not addressed, and you may have members of a congregation or a church seeing these practical, relevant things taking place and are probably confused. So if we know that Black Lives Matter, and we know in particular there is a movement that started in 2013, and I'll get into a little more of that. Is this a group that I should give my full support to? And if I want to, because it seems to be a worthy cause, you just said Black Lives Matter, am I okay in affiliating with a group like that? Now, I want you to distinguish between affiliation with a group versus affiliating with the fact or acknowledging the fact that Black Lives Matter. We acknowledge that Black Lives Matter. Amen, somebody? Amen. But a lot of people just say it is Black Lives Matter and that is your altar. So what happened subsequently, one of our footballers, Chris Burchell, joined in and he said, all lives matter. And you would remember that. And he started to get a lot of stick for that, because what they were actually telling him, by you saying all lives matter, you are diluting the issue of the concentration on the point that Black Lives Matter and we need to develop spiritual Black lives. So he got some stick for that. And then you had other noted people getting involved. And I don't know if they fully understand what is happening. Are they just taking this thing from certain aspects? So Sammy, the former West Indies cricketer, joined in. And he says, we have to support Black Lives Matter. And one of his reasons is that West Indies at one point in time was the powerhouse in the cricketing fraternity for 15 years, and one of their strengths was that West Indian bowlers had the best pace attack. And then the other cricketing groups around the world join in and says, no, that's his perception, that's his view, that the West Indies now will curb will have to curb their thing, and their lowest pass you should have only one bouncer over. Remember that? And for that reason, he says, we're going to do Black Lives Matter. And so people have different views as to why they're joining this group, Black Lives Matter. But I want to ask you this morning, if you have intention of affiliating with a group in any form of fashion, you might hashtag, you might join in, you might be with a group of people who are saying, well, listen, let's join in. What is your view? What is your understanding? And so from the pulpit, I can't go into this. Obviously, this message you have to go beyond today, because the amount of information and research you have to this, and tying it with the Word of God, because the underlying idea behind this thing is racism. When it blew up a few weeks ago, when this white man put his knees on a black man and he subsequently died. But let me just talk about the group for a minute. In 2013, the movement began with the use of hashtag Black Lives Matter after the acquittal of George Zimmerman in the shooting death of an African-American teen, Trayvon Martin, in February of 2012. In 2013, three radical, and I want you to remember this, three radical black organizers, Alicia Gaze, Patrice Cullors, and Oprah Tometi, created a black-centered political will and movement. They had a project, hashtag Black Lives Matter. What they says is we need to build local power. Now, I want to ask you the question every so often, do Black Lives Matter, yes or no? Yes. But their purpose to intervene was in violence inflicted on black communities by the states and by vigilantes. In an ideological and political invention in a world where black lives are systematically and intentionally targeted for demise. So they said we're going to do something about that. It was a resilience in the face of deadly oppression. They say that. And so it continues. I don't have to go into all the details, but in 2014, one Mike Brown was murdered by the Ferguson police officer Darren Wilson. And so this group organized the Black Lives Matter riot. And on Labor Day of that year, there was this big parade and so on. So the movement developed, and their emphasis was on Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter because we have to develop the support of black lives. And I am for every ounce of effort from any quarters where one race, whatever it is, because in the Bible I'm going to refer to the Jewish race. For 400 years that was suppressed. You see, this thing cannot be about one ethnic group, but any ethnic group that is suppressed, God has to say something about it, including the blacks. Amen, somebody? Are you understanding what I'm saying? So, the latest death of Floyd, when a white police put his foot on the neck for 9 minutes, that action is totally unacceptable and it is wrong. Now, unfortunately and sadly, a lot of people with Robin Hood styling will say, well, that is good. That is good because this man, Floyd, he wasn't a saint. In fact, the very act of counterfeit that involved counterfeit money that the police was called to on that day, he was involved in some issues. And then some people will say, but because the man had a track record, and he did have a track record, and because of the fact that it was proven by the autopsy that the man didn't necessarily die from the foot alone, he had other issues. The fact is, the man was murdered, and a police officer contributed to that. But I'm saying, some will want to overlook that and say it is good that Floyd died that way. And Floyd had a history of charges. And on that day, he committed fraudulent activity. But I am here to say this morning, and next week we're going to deal with restraints in order that God has set up from His Word and through society to put things in place to deal with that. We cannot be vigilantes, and we cannot take matters of the law into our own hands, operate how we want. Are you with me? And say, I am my own boss. And that is equally true for those who react to the situation and they started to take matters in their own hand. Are you understanding what I'm saying? And while I want to tell you that they were honest, genuine protesters that went on the streets, I am telling you that their desire was to see that somebody had to stand up for that. The fact is that there were those who were piggybacking on that action and started to loot the entire place. So not all the protesters were involved in that. But then there were some. And equally wrong that this white man would kill this black man in this way. It is equally wrong for the black man to take advantage of this situation. And for those who were not just protesting but went further ahead and started to destroy and set back communities and countries way back because of the problems that occurred because of that, we have to say that wrong is wrong. So, what does this group stand for? And what does the Word of God has to say about it? Well, clearly the Bible says Jesus loves us all. Amen. We used to sing a song, Jesus loved the little children, all the children of the world, red and yellow, black and white, they are precious in His sight. Can somebody say amen? And I don't know where people get this idea that your skin color, or because you have a lighter complexion, you're supposed to be superior to others. I don't know where that comes from, but later on in the message, doing a little research in biology will tell you that they just have a little, what you call melanin. That is just the pigment that causes your skin to get a little darker. I'm going to talk about that. That's all the difference is. But I don't know where people have this idea that, one race is superior to the other race. And Paul deals with that in Romans chapter 3. So let's look at the Word of God, and then I'll get back to Black Lives Matter, because I have to not give you a set of information. I have to tell you what the Word of God says on the issue in my 40 minutes this morning. Amen, somebody. Romans chapter 3, if you will look with me to this chapter. The Bible says from verse 9, what shall we conclude then? Paul was talking as a Jew. He says, are we any better? And the immediate answer is, his immediate answer is, not at all. Not at all. We have already made the charge that Jews and Gentiles are alike. All under what? The power of sin. So if you feel that you are white, anybody white was here? I know if you're not white, you're black. I don't care if you have more melanin and others. We all black. Any white man here into this? Except Rishi. This morning, let me explain to you something. And I want to come back to this to share with you the characteristics of the problem. But I want to deal with this matter of racism or status, because the Jews, when Paul was writing to them, felt that they have a right. When the white man put his foot on this black man's neck, he felt that he had power, not because he was the authority, but because you do have in reality the white supremacists believing that they have a right to do certain stuff. That is a fact of the matter. And then you have that kind of thinking flowing all over the place, in government, in the country, in the church. But what is really humorous is that this Black Lives Matter reached to Trinidad, and they start to protest by the embassy. Remember that? And then very recently, as early as this week, as late as this week, you had the situation in town. And some liken it unto the fact and parallel it and say, well, in America, the police brutally cause problems, and we are going to protest. Some quarters, not everybody. And I was wondering, where was the parallel? Because in Trinidad, the police are black. The people they given the problem, they are black. You understand what I'm saying? And I didn't see the parallel, save and except to say that it was law enforcement they perceived was against the person. So we need to get our facts right, and we need to be correct in our assessment. But Paul had it right when he says, what shall we conclude then? Are we better? Are there those who are better than others? But I want you to see his biblical and the biblical points that he made. So go back to chapter 2 from verse 17. And what he said here in chapter 3, link with chapter 2. So he says in verse 17, now you, if you call yourself a Jew, and if you rely on the law and boast in God, because remember, the Jews had, that's the fact of the matter, they are a privileged group. And there are reasons for that. Let me give you a few. In the Jewish nation, they had many advantages. They were entrusted with God's law. You'll see that in chapter 3. I'll show you that in a little bit. The very words of God in Exodus 19 came to the Jewish people. They were the race through which the Messiah came to earth. You know that, as Jew. Amen? You know that? Yes? 3, they were beneficiaries of covenants with God himself. You'll find that in Genesis 17, Exodus 19. But what Paul is saying, these privileges did not make them better than anyone else. That's what he was saying. And you'll see that clearly in chapter 9. Chapter 3, verse 9. But in chapter 2. But I pause to tell you that now if you call yourself a Jew, if you rely on the law and brag about your relationship with God, verse 18, if you know his will and approve what is superior, you see that word superior there? Some white people feel that they are superior based on the color of their skin. Some groups feel that they are more important. It's very prevalent in Hinduism, where there's a caste system. We here to talk about that, but I think you know what I'm talking about. If you know his will and approve of what is superior, because you are instructed by the law, because you work closely to the law, continue. He says, if you are convinced that you are a guide for the blind, a light for those who are in the dark, you are superior, you are great. You are an instructor of the foolish, so you are so smart. A teacher of little children, because you have in the law the embodiment of the knowledge of truth. You are a Jew, we are Jews, you have the truth. He says, you then, who teach others? Do you not teach yourself? You who preach against stealing, do you steal? You are the embodiment of knowledge and truth, you know. But tell me, are you superior when you yourselves are thieves? And you stand high and mighty and telling others. He continues. You who say that people should not commit adultery, you commit adultery. You who abhor idols, do you rob temples? Continue. You who boast in the law, do you not dishonor God by breaking the law? And that is why Jesus had a lot of confrontation. And I could go on and on. I could go on and on. But I think, and I'm hoping that you get the point, that when these Jewish people hold on to the fact of their race or their ethnicity and the fact that they were God's chosen people, Paul came down to them and said, all that is rubbish. So every white man who thinks because his skin is lighter than others, and he holds to some of the same principles, not necessarily the exact thing, Paul would say it is total rubbish. Look down to verse 28 because of time. Look down to verse 28. He says a person is not a Jew who is one only outwardly, nor is circumcision merely outward and physical. Continue. He says, no, a person, if you really want to boast about being a Jew, is one who inwardly, and circumcision is circumcision of the heart. By the, so Christians, we need to take note, not by the written code. Such a person's praise is not from other people, but from God. But from God. So with this backdrop now, we go to chapter 3. Because you need to look at the thing in context. And remember what I told you in verse 9. But let's go back to verse number, let's just go to verse 9 because of time. He says, what shall we conclude then? Are we better? Remember, one of the reasons that they were saying that they were better is because the word of God came through them. Yeah? And you will see that early on in the chapter, but I cannot go verse by verse, so I love to read. So, he comes to this point now, chapter 9. What shall we conclude then? Are we better? And the answer is a resounding no. We have already made the charge that Jews and Gentiles, and if I can put it in the scenario of black and white, and if you have some yellow between, and whatever other colors, they are all alike under sin. So he now moves into 3 areas or 3 truths that bring us into one. Bring us into one. And the first one is the issue of our character. So let me tell you something. If you are a white person today, well, you're not here, no white person here, or if you have a concept because of your status, because of this, because of that, you are passing over somebody, then you need to take note of what Paul is going to say now. What shall we do then? Are we better? No, we are already made the charge that Jews and Gentiles are alike. 3 truths that he brings to the fore. Number 1 has to deal with character. He says there is no one righteous. That was our communion verse. Not even one. There is no one who understands, no one who seeks God. So number 1, our character. No one that is good. By nature, we have gone astray. Black man, white man, African, Indian, this one, that one. We have all gone astray. And here's something good for Christians to remember if you are born again. Now, if you're not born again, what Isaiah tells us is if we are separated from God, we are astray, we need to come back. And how do you do that? Verse number 11. There is no one who understands God. There is no one who seeks God. So I want you to remember this, Christian. And I know we had some conversation this week. I had some conversation with a brother and talking about what are some of the fruits that accompany Christianity. And we can talk about a number of things that you do. And that's good. I love coming to church, I love praying, I love this. But you see that verse there, verse number 11? There is no one that seeks God. When you really want to live for God, you will seek God. Amen, somebody? You will seek God. You will seek God until you find Him. And then you will move from justification, because when you say one of the theological terms, you are justified. You move from justification to sanctification before you reach glorification. So you are justified, you're declared righteous by God. And there are a lot of people who are declared righteous and they have a right standing with God. The sad thing today, and as we look at our theme for this year, there is no action, there is nothing else that accompanies their life. There is no seeking after this God. And we heard a wonderful message last week that reminded us that we have to pursue. Are you with me this morning? So, Pastor Michael, people who just come to church and leave and go and do nothing, are they Christians? Paul tells us in the book of Corinthians that they are Christians who are carnal. Are you with me? They are Christians. But that's all they settle for. And what he's saying here is that people that is synonymous with the world and outside God does not seek God. And I would think that it is, to me, ironic that here we say that we want to know God, but there is no effort in seeking God. When the opposite is true, that when somebody doesn't know God, he doesn't seek God. That's what they say there. No one seeks God. But then you say and boast, I know God. I love Him. I want to serve Him. So I want to ask you, where are you in terms of seeking God? Where are you in terms of just moving above a visitor church once a week or whatever? Are you really a person who is seeking God? And if you don't seek God, am I having the traits of a child of God who's supposed to seek His face? But those who don't know God will not seek God. And I want you to remember, as a child of God, you have to move from justification to sanctification, where you will come and you will seek His face. That is where prayer meeting and getting into the Word and serving the Lord. And there isn't a lot of people or Christians' mind just to remain right there. Right there. Nobody says you need to seek God. The effort that is being placed here now on this message is for you, even with the scenario that is taking place, is not to ignorantly join on a bandwagon and say, I want to join this group. Do you know what this group stands for? Well, you hear Black Lives Matter like Sammy and say, well, more than one bouncer could be had because it's a black man bowling. You can't say that. But what does this group stand for? And I'll get to the other 2 points just now. Let me just tell you this morning, and obviously I will elaborate on this next week, that while they are concerned about Black Lives Matter, and the question will be asked, well, should I not join them out of sympathy and compassion? Should I not join them? What are some of the options? Join them, go ahead with them, be a part with them. Let me tell you about some of their guiding principles. And these are terms that they use in their guiding principles. They are transgender affirming. And what they are saying, we need to dismantle cisgender. And cis is what is called biological sex. And we need, this is what the group is saying, so Black Lives Matter is not just about lives alone. Jesus loves everybody. But it's about uplifting transgender black folk, especially black women. And if we could dismantle cisgender, that would be good. They declare that we are womanists rather than feminists, and we need to build space that affirms black women. And we have to be free from sexism, an environment where men are supposed to lead and be in charge. I'm telling you from their guiding principles. It continues, we are queer offering. We gather to free people from the belief that all should be heterosexual. Heterosexual means man and wife. We have to free people from that thinking. Black women who believe that they should get married and settle with a man. That's foolishness. And next week I will show you the biblical things of that. So this is not about just black lives, and it goes on. We are intentionally amplifying that the particular experience of violence that black, queer, transgender, we must fight. Sometimes if it means using the suffering of a few, it's alright if a few plays one man and not a problem. But we have to fight, we have to go all out. If it means destruction, we will do it. Now, I want to pause, this passage is loaded, I'll tell you, to compare those kinds of thinking, or that kind of thinking, to a man by the name of William Wilberforce. Have you ever heard of William Wilberforce? Anybody? I still on Black Lives Matter. I still on that. William Wilberforce was born in August 24, 1759. He was a British politician and the leader of a movement. Listen to me now. Black Lives Matter. Do Black Lives Matter? Now compare Black Lives Matter movement to a man like William Wilberforce, who says that the British were trading black slaves. And he was on a serious drive to make sure that stopped. He was a native of Yorkshire, some say Yorkshire or Yorkshire, which is the correct pronunciation. Whatever. He began his political career in 1780, becoming an independent member of parliament, studied at Cambridge University, and had a lasting friendship with the Prime Minister back then, William Pitt. He studied at Cambridge University, this is in 1780, so don't feel old folks so old, you know. In 1780, his dissolute lifestyle, and you know what I mean dissolute lifestyle, right? A lot of sensual pleasure, drinking and all that kind of thing. That kind of over-gratified and indulgent sensual pleasures, he came to know the Lord. He was transformed, and his Christian faith, listen to me now, we talk about what this group is about, what groups are about, what people is about, and what the church should be about. His Christian faith prompted social reform. And he started on a campaign, not to burn down the building. And I would say something very clearly. Not all the protesters burned down the building. I want to tell you that. Some of them were genuine in what their cause was. That Black Lives Matter. Do Black Lives Matter? Yes. But this man, Black slaves matter. Because he was campaigning for slave trade to end, in which the British were carrying, as I said, black slaves from Africa in terrible conditions, were treated like animals. And guess where they were coming to? The West Indies. If you know your history right. They were coming to the West Indies. He lobbied for 18 years, regularly introducing anti-slavery motions in Parliament. Until in 1807, this is William Wilberforce, go into your history, he finally abolished, it was finally abolished. This did not end because the law was passed, but there was still a lot of black men under oppression. The law was passed. So this did not free those who already were slaves. And it was not until 1833, 26 years later, that an act was passed giving freedom to all slaves. Finally, black men, black slaves in particular, could be free. Why? Because here was a man who had nothing on his agenda save and expect, primarily because of his Christian values, that Black Lives Matter and these black slaves matter. But he did a lot of good work. He worked with the reformer Hannah More to help children, unfortunate children, get them educated, personal hygiene, religion. He had this big thing, observance of Sunday. And he was even instrumental, both with his social work, his political work, and now his missionary work where he encouraged Christians to India. So if you're telling me somebody who's serious about lives matter, I'll tell you about William Wilberforce. And if you could tell me that the group Black Lives Matter really serious, because it's prevalent, you know. This week, West Indies and England going to play the first test. Everybody is going to have on their, all players will have on their hands Black Lives Matter. Because they stand in solidarity with the fact that there is racism, and there is, and black lives are being sidelined and crushed, and that happens. But I'm just educating you and informing you that if you happen to want to join the movement, it is more than that. It is not like William Wilberforce, but it's a group that is heavy on anti-biblical issues. But you have to make that decision. I can't make it for you. I know everybody wants to join in a crowd. They don't investigate, they don't study, they don't know. And if you feel that you could join the group and distinguish both, that is a matter for you. But there is more that the group stands for. Now, let me go back to Romans chapter 3. I have to close and I have to continue this next week. There is no one righteous, no, not one. So he talks about the character of man. White, black, red, yellow, white. They have all turned away, verse number 12. And they have together become worthless. There is no one that does good, not even one. And I have to say, I don't care what kind of group is formed, what kind of religion is formed, what kind of church you attend to. If this is not dealt with, then you are missing a fundamental point. So number one, we have bad character without God. Number two, we have bad conversation. Let's look at it in verse number 13. Their throats are open graves, their tongues practice deceit. The poison of vipers is on their lips. Without God, you hear about jungle bread, don't you? Have you heard about jungle bread? Putrid, stink mode, you ever hear about that? Well, they don't know what those words, but I'm not talking about physical bad breath. I am talking about people who, whether you're a white man or you believe from the group, but if this kind of thing comes out from your mouth, then you need to take stock of what is happening with your life. So not only number one, we have bad character, but he says we have bad conversation. Their throats are open graves, their tongues practice deceit. The poison of vipers is on their lips. Let me kill them, man. Let me kill them. They oppress me, let me kill them. The police kill 3 other people, let me kill them. Let me go and march, let me go and bomb down the place. Let me disrupt, let me kill them. These are words that start a movement. And I want you to always investigate when you join up with any group or movement or church or anything. Listen to what is being said. That is why the word of God is most important. If you plan to migrate and you want to join a church, be careful what is being preached from the pulpit. Their mouths are full of cursing and bitterness. So he talks about bad character, he talks about bad conversation. So this morning I want us to examine our hearts. Without God we have bad character. That's what Paul is saying. Paul said talk about Jews and Gentiles, black and white, this and that and all kind of thing. He says you have bad character, you have bad conversation, but you have bad conduct. Verse number 15. Their feet are swift to shed blood. Their feet are swift to shed blood. And blood is being shed all about them. Probably if you do a little history, you will know in World War II there were 75 million people who died. 75 million. Guess what? 50 million of those were civilians. Yeah? Check how much people die when people are swift to shed blood. Let me walk, let me fight. Let me go and take them. Let me go and kill them. Feet that are swift to shed blood. Let me go out in the streets and riot. Who dead, who plays burn now? No problem. Their feet are swift to shed blood. Ruin and misery mark their ways. Ruin and misery mark their ways. And listen to this point that I will have to close up on and probably pick up next week, verse number 17. And the way of peace they do not know. The way of peace, they do not know. Now, if Black Lives Matter is about serious peace, well, we can talk some results. But from the guidelines that I read, I don't want to make up your mind. And this not goes for this organization, it goes for anything that you're joining on. If the way of peace they do not know, we have to get on board with any organization, a church, that would help people to know that although their character is bad, their conversation is bad, their conduct is bad, praise be unto God, there is a way of peace. Amen, somebody? And the way of peace they do not know. But why they don't know have that peace? Next verse. Next verse. There is no fear of God before their eyes. Obviously, I have to close now. But next week, the Lord willing, if this was a normal Sunday, I'd have preached and tell you what is what. But you have to stay tuned for part 2, because how do I instill the fear of God? How is the fear of God instilled in my life? God has now allowed us to have restraints. There's 4 of them in the scriptures. Part 2 of this message, Black Lives Matter. 4 restraints that we're going to deal with next week, so that this fear of God can be instilled. If you are serious about the work, I want you to read in preparation for next week's sermon. Romans chapter 1. It really is from about verse 18, because let me just give you a little hint before we close, and to get you in the word for next week. Beyond the fear of God, there is the rejection of God. And Romans chapter 1 verse 18 deals with that. And God will have none of it. And the wrath of God is poured down. So when people don't fear God and they choose to reject God, there is a consequence. So you need to read that. But I also want you, and if the operator can go to Proverbs chapter 16 verse 6. Proverbs 16:6. You also have to read Proverbs 16 from verses 1 to 9 or thereabout. But look at verse 6. Through love and faithfulness, sin is atoned for, and through the fear of the Lord, evil is avoided. How will I have the fear of God? There are restraints, starting with myself, an institution that God has placed on the face of the earth. This morning, do Black Lives Matter? Yes or no? Do I join every organization that shows a good service outing, projection? I can't, but I have to be careful. What are we about? What do we get ourselves involved with? Who are our friends? How are we carrying about our lives? Are we reflective of the fact that conversation is important, character is important, and conduct is important? Are we involved with a man who says, well, let's get rid of all the criminals, let's going to kill all of them? We're going to, election bell is wrong, we're going to get involved in politics. Why are you involved in politics? And how is it different if you are saying that there's some issues with Black Lives Matter? Are not some of these same traits very, very, very true in in a couple of major parties that exist? That if Black Lives Matter and racism involved, are we not, and do we not vote along tribal lines? Now, I want to close it, but I want to be real with you, and I want you to be real with me. And I want you to tell me honestly that I am going to vote for this party because of the color of my skin, which is total foolishness. Amen, somebody? Amen. You vote for a party because you deal with issues. I could just tell you about still dealing with black. When the black president, Obama, when he became president, I know for a fact that Christians who hold strongly to Christian principles. Now, let me tell you, none of those couple of parties are perfect. Eh? They both have issues. But the Republican, as you know, is against abortion and homosexuality and all that kind of thing. And there are Christians who will hold to those values. But because Obama was a black president, they will say, I will vote for him purely because he is black. Forget America, let me come to Trinidad now. You are going to vote for UNC because he's an Indian. Isn't that true? And you're going to vote for PNM because you're a black. That's what you're going to. And that is so wrong. That is so wrong, and that is in the nature of the message this morning. And there are different reasons for that, because you're going to learn, and we're going to learn, hopefully I can do it next week. This is not just a social problem, it's systemic. And we need to understand the deep-seated issue that lies with some of these things. And all of it doing, well, I'm going to go there, I grew up that way. If I share something, you will laugh. You know? When we went to school, this one said, something wrong for roti, all the roti done. You remember that? And when this other active group pick up the gun, all this one run. You remember that? And we grew up that way in primary school. And that is the culture, and that is what we learn. And then, thank God, you have that stupid mentality in primary school at least. Then you go to, I was privileged to go to school in the East-West Corridor, Hillview. And some of my best friends were a couple of African brothers. One of them was Isaac Hayes. Another one was Gibbs. He was a Bob Marley man. No Christian, but some of my best friends were Christians. And even before I came to the Lord, my whole issue of being racial or racist changed. And culture has a lot to do with it, association has a lot to do with it. I want you to understand this morning, but most importantly, I want you to abide with the truths of God's word. Amen, somebody? And when I share with you, I will continue this Black Lives Matter next week and share with you some more stuff. I want you to ask yourself, is this a group? And this is just one group, There are other groups. You could be in a PTA here, or this here, or that here. But if they are racial in nature, it is wrong. Are you with me? If the issues are not being dealt with, you're not being true, then you need to look at it. But I have to close. It's close to 9:30. Sorry about the wait. But next week, we will conclude this message. 4 restraints, do no more, please. I know some of you are very, very busy. 2 chapters I'm asking you to look at what we're going to have. So we'll be better prepared for next week. So do Black Lives Matter? Do all lives matter? Let's all stand in the presence of God. Jesus loves the little children. Like this song, yeah? All the children of the world, brown and yellow, black and white, they are precious in His sight.